What's up, guys? Welcome to Touchdown Talk, where everything and anything football goes. I'm your host, Jason, and today we have our first episode of our offensive and defensive weapons special. Now, I mentioned this in previous episodes. I mentioned this in our weekend recap, episode 2, and our NFL news in 10 minutes, which is episode 6. I will link both of those down below, along with all of the usual links to the Instagram and TikToks. So without further ado, first episode, let's kick it off with the NFC East. Now, this is going to consist of going through each and every division, then breaking each division down by team, and then breaking each team down by their offense and defensive weapons. So we're going to get started with episode 1 right here. That is with the NFC East. And let's get started with the team who made a bunch of moves this offseason, the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, for their offense, I did select quarterback Jalen Hurts, running back Kenneth Gainwell, wide receivers A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Quez Watkins, along with tight end Dallas Goedert. Now, the reason I picked these players, and this goes for every team, is these are the 6 offensive players and the 6 defensive players on each team that I think is going to make the most impact for that team this year. Now, obviously, Jalen Hurts, obviously the quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, and he's going to be the leader of this team for the fact that they're relying on him. And everyone's been hating on him. Everyone's been besmirching him, saying that he doesn't have a strong arm, saying that he can't lead the Eagles to a victory. But Jalen Hurts has the trust of the team, has the trust of the players, and he has the leadership ability that everyone's been talking about countless times over. Now, players on the team's coaching staff, fans, everyone on the network, they know that Jalen Hurts is a leader. He's been a proven leader. But everyone just questions his ability to make plays, his ability to make that long pass, his strong arm ability, and everyone doubts him. But I believe that Jalen Hurts will have a breakout year this year, especially with the rest of the guys on this list. Now, next is Kenneth Gainwell. Now, some of you may be wondering, where's Miles Sanders? I think that Kenneth Gainwell is going to be a bigger part of the Eagles team. Now, Miles Sanders has been with the team for a couple of years now, but Kenneth Gainwell, first year last year, played well in the times that he was able to come onto the field, and I think that the Eagles will be able to use him more this season. Now, going into his second year, he's learned more about the league, he's learned more about the team, the plays, and everything, and I think Gainwell is out for a breakout year. Now, I don't think he's going to be the starter for the team, but I do believe if something happens with Sanders, if Miles Sanders does go down with an injury, I don't think that they turn away from Kenneth Gainwell after that point. Now, obviously, I don't want anyone being injured. Injuries are terrible in the NFL. But what I'm saying is if Miles Sanders does have to miss time for any amount of reason, and Kenneth Gainwell does go into the lineup, I think that Kenneth Gainwell will be the starter going forward. Now, Sanders is coming up to his contract year in another year or so, and I feel like the play that we've seen from Miles Sanders hasn't been what the Eagles hoped for, hasn't been what they expected. So it's not like they're giving him the ball a ton, because he's not like that workhorse running back like guys like Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey. Those guys are workhorses who can carry the entire load. But Miles Sanders isn't that back. But if he's given the chance, he could change my mind. But as of now, I think Kenneth Gainwell means more to this team this season and going forward. Now, following that, we have the 3 receivers, and that is newly acquired A.J. Brown, sophomore receiver Devonta Smith, and their slot speedster Quez Watkins. Now, I picked these 3 because you might be asking, where's Jalen Reagor? Where's Zach Pascal? Now, Zach Pascal is a new addition, but Quez Watkins played extremely well last year when he had his moments during the season. Now, he is a speedster. He's great on the outside. He can play the slot to get underneath. He's just that speedster guy that you want on your team. And he showed flashes. He caught a 98-yard pass from Jalen Hurts last year, and he just went right up the sideline. Now, Quez Watkins' speed is what puts him above other third-string wide receivers. Now, Quez, I think, is out for a breakout year just because he is that number 3 receiver, maybe number 4 if you mix in Zach Pascal. But Jalen Reagor, I don't see being a part of this team. I have Jalen Reagor as their 5th, maybe even 6th string receiver, and he's not going to mean more to the team than any of the rest of the guys. Even Zach Pascal is going to have a bigger year than Jalen Reagor. Now, Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown are secure blanket number 1 wide receivers for Jalen Hurts. A.J. Brown's his best friend. He played extremely well with Devonta last year. They have a connection. They played in college together. And the chemistry on this offense is just really great. And especially then Dallas Goedert at that tight end position. Jalen Hurts played well with him last year. Goddard's been the guy ever since Zach Ertz left. And even when Zach Ertz was there, Dallas Goedert was kind of chipping at Ertz's playtime. So they did ship out Ertz to get a deal done with Goddard. They didn't have enough money to get both of them along with what they planned on doing in the offseason. So it did hurt to see Zach Ertz leave the team, because when you think of Zach Ertz, you think of him as a Philadelphia Eagle. He won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, and if you're an NFL fan, you don't want to see those types of players leave the team. Now, there are some money situations, injury situations, trade requests, all of that goes on. But when you see a guy that's so cemented to a team, you don't want to see him leave, because he kind of just is the heart and soul of the team. And I think that Zach Ertz was a heart and soul of the Philadelphia Eagles. But Dallas Goedert has done a great job of filling in that role. And that is why this offense is how I played it, with Jalen Hurts, Kenneth Gainwell, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Quez Watkins, and Dallas Goedert. Now, moving on to the defense for the Eagles, and that is Brandon Graham, defensive end, Fletcher Cox, defensive tackle, Javon Hargrave, defensive tackle, linebacker Hassan Reddick, and cornerbacks Darius Slay and James Bradbury. Now, it was very hard to pick apart this Eagles defense and just select 6 guys, because honorable mentions for this team, there's just so many. You have Josh Sweat, who's on the edge, who played great. You have the rookies in Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis. You have these guys. You have Avonte Maddox, who played great in the slot. Safeties Anthony Harris. And it's just amazing to see what they're able to do. And the guys that they have, they just brought in Jaquiski Tart. So it's very hard to pick 6 guys. But these are the core guys for that team. Now, Brandon Graham, you have to put him up there. He's coming back from an injury this year, and he's going to have vengeance on his mind. He's going to want to take the league by storm. He's one of the core guys on that Eagles defense. Been there for the Super Bowl along with Fletcher Cox. So when you look at Brandon Graham, he has to be on this list for the Eagles defense, just because of what he means to the team in the locker room, on the field. And just because he's coming off of an injury, he's going to have something to prove to where that injury didn't mean nothing. He's back on the field. Now, next is Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave in the middle. Now, Fletcher Cox, everyone was kind of pushing to the side last season. The Eagles at one point released him, then re-signed him. So he's out to prove that even at his age, he is still one of the best defensive tackles in the game. And I think he will be able to prove that to a lot of the haters out there. Along with Javon Hargrave, who the Eagles brought in from Pittsburgh, he played great next to Cox last year, just because when you put a guy like Hargrave, who's been good in the league, next to a guy like Fletcher Cox, along with the rest of the defense, it's hard to see who you're going to stop. And we saw that with the Rams last year with Aaron Donald, because the other guys around him, it was hard to stop them because you had to focus on Aaron Donald. So when you look at the Eagles defense, there's just so many guys that you have to protect against, to where you're going to leave one guy open. And then that's where Hassan Reddick comes in. Now, Hassan Reddick is going to be coming off the edge most likely. He did it in Arizona. He did it in Carolina. And I think Hassan Reddick has the potential to get up to that 17 sack season this year. And that's what I'm going to predict for him, because I think he could get up to those 17 sacks, in my opinion, just because of the rest of the defense that the Eagles have. Hassan Reddick is going to be underlooked and underappreciated, because we saw what he was able to do in Carolina, and he has been disrespected in his career. Teams haven't been like, that's their number one guy. And on this Eagles defense, he's not their number one guy, which makes it even more of a top potential for Reddick just because he's not the number one guy, not the number two guy on the defense. So people are going to look towards guys like Fletcher Cox, guys like Brandon Graham. And then you're going to have guys like Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat off the edge coming in on the quarterback. And I think Reddick is going to be a key to this Eagles team succeeding. Now moving on to the corners where you have Slay and Bradbury. Now these are two guys who are going to play extremely well next to each other. Now, Avonte Maddox is going to be in the slot. So, with Slay and Bradbury on the end, Bradbury coming over from the Giants, he's going to have something to prove because he's on a one-year deal with the Eagles. So, if he wants that big contract, whether it be with the Eagles or with another team, he's going to have to prove himself this season. And then Darius Slay, one of the best corners in the NFL. He's been disrespected. You look at top lists that the NFL puts out, that PFF puts out, and all these people that put out these lists, CBS, Slay is always on Twitter commenting because he's so disrespected in these lists. He's not put in the top 10 corners. He's not put in the top man coverage corners, the zone coverage corners. He's not in those conversations when you look at these posts that people put out. And Darius Slay deserves to be just because of the guy he is and the player he is on the field. And he's going to show that to the league this year and show them that he is a top 10 corner in the NFL. So for that Eagles defense, once again, defensive end Brandon Graham, defensive tackles Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, linebacker Hassan Reddick, and cornerbacks Darius Slay and James Bradbury. Those are the offensive and defensive weapons for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now moving on to the Dallas Cowboys. For their offense, I have quarterback Dak Prescott, running back Ezekiel Elliott, running back Tony Pollard. Then we have receivers CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup, along with tight end Dalton Schultz. Now for the Cowboys, they don't have Amari Cooper anymore. They lost him. They replaced him with James Washington. But James Washington is going to play as big of a part on the offense as guys like Zeke and Pollard. Now, Dak Prescott obviously at the helm at quarterback. Every one of these designs, every one of these offenses are going to have a quarterback just because the quarterback is one of the most important parts of the team, especially on that offensive side. The entire game runs through the quarterback. So, obviously, the quarterback's always going to be there. And then running backs, I had to put in both Zeke and Pollard just because it's kind of a toss-up right now as to who they're going to utilize more. Now, we saw bits and pieces of Pollard last season where the Cowboys put him in, used him more. And this year, I think that Pollard should get more playtime just because he's more explosive than Ezekiel Elliott. Now, Zeke, obviously a couple years ago, was in the conversation for best running back in the league. And now there's conversation of if Pollard is better than Zeke. Now, you can't compare them at the moment because Pollard doesn't get the opportunities. But if you give Tony Pollard those opportunities, you let him shine for that offense, he has the potential to be a better back than Zeke. He has the speed. He has the agility. Now, Zeke obviously has the power and the bigger body, but Pollard has the explosiveness that Zeke doesn't. He has the elusiveness. So if you give Pollard the chance, I do feel Pollard can overtake Zeke as the number one back in that offense. Now moving on to the receivers, where you have CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. Now CeeDee Lamb, I think, is one of the best offensive players for the Cowboys. I think by far he is the most looked at guy right now. I think he needs to be 100% looked at because he is a dangerous wide receiver. You have to have your number one cornerback on him at all times. You can forget about Michael Gallup. You can forget about James Washington. If you don't cover CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott is going to get him the ball. So CeeDee Lamb needs to be 100% covered. So guys like Darius Slay, guys like Jalen Ramsey, those guys in the league, guys like Marshawn Lattimore, guys like Adoree Jackson, all these guys need to look at CeeDee Lamb the most in this offense. Now, if you don't look at CeeDee Lamb, then he's going to get open. But that's where the problem comes in because just like the Eagles with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, just like where we see with Washington where everyone goes to Terry McLaurin, the Giants with all the receivers they have, and teams all over the league with multiple wide receivers, you have to look at their number one guy the most. But with the Cowboys, it's special because you see CeeDee Lamb and you know that he's their number one guy. Now, Gallup's coming off an injury. We don't know what we're going to get from him, but I do see Gallup as a good number 2 wide receiver, so teams are going to be able to use their number 2 corner on him and not worry as much as if other teams, like when you had the Rams with Cooper Kupp and then Robert Woods. Now they have Allen Robinson, Odell Beckham. So you don't have to worry as much, but you need your number 1 corner on CeeDee Lamb just because of the player he is. And then lastly is Dalton Schultz. Obviously there's contract confrontation between him and the team right now. He wants a deal. The team has a franchise tag on him. So maybe this is his year to show them that, yeah, I am your number 1 tight end. I am the guy in this locker room for you guys. And whether the Cowboys want to keep him or not, this is kind of his time to shine, to get a contract. Just like the James Bradbury situation. He's on a 1-year deal on the franchise tag. So if he doesn't show teams, he doesn't show the Cowboys that he could be a starting tight end for any of the teams, he's not going to get the contract that he wants. So once again, for their offense, quarterback Dak Prescott, running backs Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, wide receivers CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup, and tight end Dalton Schultz. Now for their defense, I have defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence, defensive tackle Neville Gallimore, linebackers Micah Parsons and Jabril Cox, along with linebacker Leighton Vander Esch and cornerback Trayvon Diggs. Now, reasonings for this, obviously Trayvon Diggs, corner, let's just start there. One of the best Cowboys on the team last year, and obviously with his interceptions, I think he can improve on his coverage. We saw a bunch of plays where he was just terrible in coverage, letting guys run right past him, letting guys go to the side, just breaking down on the routes. Now, yes, Cowboy fans were ecstatic with the interceptions from Diggs, but you have to look at all aspects of being a corner. Now, yes, the interceptions are great because they're going to help your team out, but at the same time, you need to be able to cover. That way, your team isn't completely demolished on the defensive side. Because now, yes, you can get an interception, but if you get beat on a big play, then it just deflects and it doesn't matter because what you did good just got destroyed because they just scored a touchdown. So it doesn't really matter if you can't play defense. But Trayvon Diggs, obviously great at the interceptions, led the league in them last year, was well on his way to the record, but just came up short. Then another huge guy for the team, DeMarcus Lawrence from the edge position. Now, Lawrence has been one of the best Cowboy defensive players for years now, and he's just going to continue to assert his dominance on the defense. But next to him is a guy who just shot out of a cannon last year, and that is Micah Parsons. Now, Micah Parsons went off last year, one of the best defensive players in the league. Now, obviously the best Cowboy player last year, along with Trayvon Diggs. But Micah Parsons, when Cowboy fans look at him, they think he's just a god for them right now. And Micah Parsons is a good player, but he's just in his rookie year. He has a lot more to go. He's so young, so early in his career, that he has a lot to still prove, a lot to show. And I think this year he could take that next step and continue to what he did, continue to build on his career, which was his rookie year last season. Then a surprising guy who Cowboy fans might disagree with is Neville Gallimore. I think at the defensive tackle position, you're going to need somebody there to fill that gap and fill that hole, and I think it's going to be Neville Gallimore. I think he's going to help the team out at that defensive tackle position. And then back to the linebackers, these are more of, middle linebacker positions, and that is Jabril Cox and Leighton Vander Esch. Now, I think Jabril Cox is a bit underrated. I think he can show more. I think he has the potential to play better. So I'm excited to see what he can do this season. But I do think that Leighton Vander Esch has a lot to prove as well, because he was at the edge of getting released by the Cowboys, but they did end up keeping him. So Leighton Vander Esch wants a new contract. He's in the marks for it, in the range of it, but he still has a lot to prove since battling all of his injuries. He's been on and off the field, and he really needs to be able to stay healthy this season and show the Cowboys and other teams that he can stay healthy and play an entire season. So once again, we have defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence, linebackers Micah Parsons, Jabril Cox, and Leighton Vander Esch, along with defensive tackle Neville Gallimore and cornerback Trayvon Diggs. Now, moving on to the third team in the division, and that is the Washington Commanders. Now, starting off their offense, quarterback Carson Wentz, running back Antonio Gibson, wide receivers Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, and tight end Logan Thomas. So as you can see the difference with the teams, some have 2 running backs, some only have 1, some have 2 receivers, some have 3. And a common thing here is the Eagles and Washington with the 1 running back, 3 receiver, tight end. And then the Cowboys obviously have the 2 running back, 2 receiver. But with Washington, Carson Wentz at the quarterback position, and I think this is where they're going to hurt the most. They haven't had a starting quarterback. They haven't been able to find a franchise guy, and I don't think Carson Wentz is their franchise guy. I don't think Carson Wentz is a starting caliber quarterback. I don't see him playing for a lot of teams, and I think he'll probably be replaced throughout the season. Now, we saw what he did with the Colts last year, and he lost to the Jaguars to get knocked out and not have a chance to make the playoffs. He lost in Week 18 where Jacksonville stayed home. They all dressed as clowns to mock their general manager, and then they still beat the Indianapolis Colts, led by Carson Wentz. He tore his ACL. He's had back problems. He sprained both of his ankles last season. He's just so bad on the field to where you never know what's going to come from him. And he just doesn't think before he plays. He throws the ball left-handed in the end zone as he's falling. He throws interceptions. And he's just really going to hurt this team. And I do see Taylor Haneke or Sam Howell coming in the season. Maybe because Wentz is that bad and they don't want to play him anymore, or maybe because he gets hurt like he's done every single one of the past seasons. And then running back and wide receiver is where I think they're going to be able to help the most. Now, running back, I am a strong believer in Antonio Gibson. He's one of my favorite running backs in the league. I think he's highly disrespected in the league. He hasn't been given the chance. And with Washington, they're such a interesting team to watch because they've had so much change over the past couple of years at every position. They've had new coaches, new quarterbacks, new players surrounding them. And now with the information about owner Dan Snyder, we don't know what's in store for Washington. We don't know if they're going to be kicked out. We don't know if they're going to have a new stadium. We don't know if their owner's going to get kicked out and have to give up the team. So a lot going on with Washington this year. But it comes down to how they play on the field and the players. And I think their strongest position is the defense. But I do love Terry McLaurin. I think he was well-deserved of his contract. He probably could have gotten even more. And I think he is one of those top young wide receivers in the league. Now, I think he's going to inspire guys like Jahan Dotson and really show him as he is a veteran and a leader. I think he's going to be able to coach up Jahan Dotson, who I was surprised that fell so far in the draft. I thought he was very disrespected in the draft. I think he's very underrated. And I think mixing him with Terry McLaurin is going to be a great 1-2 punch for Washington if Carson Wentz can throw them the ball. Then alongside them is Curtis Samuel, who was injured last year. So he's coming back from an injury. He is that little slot speedster kind of guy. So he's going to work well with McLaurin and Dotson, because if you have McLaurin and Dotson on the outside, you have Curtis Samuel who can come into the inside of the field and work his way around. And then tight end Logan Thomas, who's that big body tight end who you could just throw the ball up to. He can make moves. He's coming back from injuries. So all these players, they have to work together if they're going to come together. So once again, their offense is quarterback Carson Wentz, running back Antonio Gibson, wide receivers Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, and tight end Logan Thomas. Now moving on to their defense, where we have Chase Young at defensive end. Then we have defensive tackles Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, and then Montez Sweat at the defensive end position, along with linebacker Jamin Davis and safety Cam Curl. Now with this defensive line, 4 first-round picks in Young, Payne, Allen, and Sweat. Now this is where their strongest aspect of the team is, and I think this is one of the best defensive lines in the league. I would put them top 5, maybe top 3, alongside the Eagles, the Rams. The Niners are up there. And with these 4 guys all being first-round picks, the Washington Commanders, now football team before, I think they've really hit in the past couple of years with these guys. Now, these guys are not misses. They've all been hits in the draft. Chase Young, obviously phenomenal. His rookie year, got hurt last year, so he's coming back from an injury. Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen are great up the middle. They work very well together. You don't know which one to double team because you can't, because then you have Chase Young on the outside along with Montez Sweat. And then Sweat, as I just mentioned, comes off the outside, takes the pressure off, and then you have Payne and Allen pushing up the middle. So it's really hard for teams to cover this defense when all four of these guys are healthy. And now with guys like Jamin Davis in that linebacker, that second position, that second level of the defense, I think Jamin Davis is going to shine this year, especially with that defensive line, how well they are. Teams are going to have to look forward to guarding them more. They're going to have to put more guys on them, more blocks, protect longer, and then you're going to have Jamin Davis be able to come in on blitzes sometimes. He's going to be able to cover and work his way around the field, maybe a QB spy on sometimes. And then safety Cam Curl, who was a phenomenal pick by the Washington Commanders, then football team. So Cam Curl, one of the best players on that Washington team. He really shined last year at that safety position, and I think this year he's going to continue to do that. So once again, for their defense, it is defensive end Chase Young and Montez Sweat, and then defensive tackles Payne and Allen, along with linebacker Jamin Davis and safety Cam Curl. Now, our last team in the NFC East where we're going to be ending is the New York Giants. And for their offense, we have quarterback Daniel Jones, running back Saquon Barkley, wide receivers Kenny Golladay, Sterling Shepard, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Kadarius Toney. No tight end for the Giants right here. And that is because I think that the loss of Evan Ingram is going to cause for more of the receivers to come into play. Now, a guy who's an honorable mention here, and I was playing around with him, was Darius Slayton. Now, the Giants were slated to trade Slayton, but all in all, none of that happened. So I was thinking of placing him in for Kadarius Toney, since there were also trade reports for Toney. But I think Toney's shiftiness, Toney's ability, his elusiveness, is going to come into play more for the Giants than Darius Slayton, who's just a great slot kind of guy for that Giants team. He's been good for the Giants, but they kind of don't utilize him as he should be. So I think Slayton should be traded. That way he can get a fresh start and show teams that he's a good wide receiver, because I do believe in Darius Slayton. I'm a fan of Darius Slayton, but I just think that the Giants aren't using him as they should. But Daniel Jones, let's start right there at the quarterback position. Daniel Jones is kind of the Hellmat quarterback. Now, he's gotten his back covered by Eli Manning, who came out and talked about him. The team's backed him, but we haven't seen much of him on the team. Now, he hasn't been given a shot at the Giants quarterback position because they haven't had receivers with them, and when they did, they were all injured. And Saquon Barkley, he was injured. So it's been tough for Daniel Jones to play with the New York Giants team. They've kind of been like a makeshift team where they're just trying to like throw players together, try to make something work. But Daniel Jones himself hasn't showed anything, hasn't showed the promise. But when you look at the Giants team around him, it's hard to really connect because there's not a lot of guys who are good on that team, because the guys that are good were hurt. So it was really hard for Jones to get started. But this year is the year for him, if ever, with a contract looming in the future. If he wants a starting job, this is the year for him to show the Giants, for them to make him their franchise guy. Now, Saquon Barkley is the player I'm most excited to see on this Giants team because he's been injured the past couple years, and he looks phenomenal in training right now. The pictures he's been posting of him working out, the pictures of him being posted in training, he looks phenomenal. He's in phenomenal shape, and I think Barkley's on a revenge tour this year just because of how the Giants have used him in the past. He's been hurt the past couple of years, so all the injuries Barkley has faced, now is his time to get back on the field and show the Giants that they made the right choice in the draft, taking him at number 2. And then moving into our 4 wide receivers, we're kind of going to bunch them all together. And as a wide receiver room, the New York Giants are going to have to show something. Now, out of this group with Golladay, Shepard, Robinson, and Toney, as I said, was the elusive type of guy. Wan'Dale Robinson's the rookie, so I think he's going to be able to get mixed in. Now, the Giants have had a hard time mixing players in because it doesn't seem like they know what they're doing. But with new head coach Brian Daboll, I think now is the time for the Giants to get their stuff together, get their team together. If not now, then when? Now for the Giants, it's been quite a while, and if they can't do it now with Daboll and the team that they have, these 5-6 receivers that they have, Barkley here, if you can't do it now, you have to make a change at quarterback. You got to change something with the team. That's what they did this offseason. They brought in a new head coach, a new general manager. So now is the time for the Giants to fix all of their problems in past years. And I think this wide receiver room is going to be key because Daniel Jones is going to need to throw somebody the ball. So if Galladay can stay injured, if he could stay on the field, that'd be great for the Giants. Same for Sterling Shepard. If he could stay on the field, that'd be great for the Giants. And then Robinson should be worked in as a rookie. He should be given a chance, along with Tony and Slayton, who have been kind of outcasted on that team. So once again, for that offense, quarterback Daniel Jones, running back Saquon Barkley, and then wide receivers Kenny Galladay, Sterling Shepard, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Kadarius Toney. Now for that defense, we have defensive end Dexter Lawrence along with Leonard Williams, then linebacker newly acquired rookie Kayvon Thibodeau, linebacker Azeez Ojulari, and cornerback Adoree Jackson along with safety Xavier McKinney. So let's start with that D-line with Lawrence and Williams. These are the two guys that are going to be rushing the passer, coming at the quarterback. And these two guys are going to need to be in sync, on the same page, if the Giants are going to want to succeed at that position and getting pressure to the quarterback. So then guys like Ojulari and Thibodeau can have the time to get around the edge. And Thibodeau here is going to be the crucial part of this defense because they did draft him extremely high in the draft. And for him to be able to come into this team, into that New York market, he's going to have to calm down a bit and show the Giants that they didn't miss on their pick. That show the Giants that they won't regret it and prove to everyone that they should have picked him before the Giants were able to. And then Azeez Ojulari, who's drafted last year, I like him. I thought he was going to go earlier in last year's draft. I thought it was a steal for the Giants. And I think this is the year where Ojulari shines because of the other guys around him. He's going to be overlooked on teams. They're going to overlook him and the player he is. So then guys like Thibodeau, who are going to get more eye contact, get more blocking, get more pressure on him, then guys like Ojulari are going to be able to get around and make the moves that they need to play extremely well. Then lastly is the defensive backs with Jackson at corner and McKinney at safety. I'm a huge fan of McKinney. I really like him at that safety position. I think this is the year where he could show teams that he's a great safety. Now, he was drafted just a few years ago, and I think that he has proven that he was well worth his draft pick and that he should have been taken earlier. And then Adoree Jackson is interesting because he doesn't have Bradbury next to him anymore. Bradbury was released and then the Eagles picked him up. So Adoree Jackson is kind of by himself on his little island. So when teams have 2-3 wide receivers like the Eagles, like the Commanders, it's going to be hard for the Giants to cover those guys, which is why that D-line and linebacker position is going to be so crucial. So Adoree Jackson is going to need to be able to stay healthy, stay on the field, and be able to cover his entire side. That way their number 2 and number 3 corner are able to kind of fill in that gap for James Bradbury. So ending with the Giants, once again, defensive linemen Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, along with linebackers Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari, and cornerback Adoree Jackson and safety Xavier McKinney. That is going to be it for episode 1 of Offensive and Defensive Weapons, NFC East Edition. Now, this is going to come out on Tuesday, July 5th, and Thursday, July 7th will be the Offensive and Defensive Weapons episode 2, AFC East Edition, and this will continue throughout the next 4 weeks, going division by division, breaking down every team like I just did. Now, yes, this is a bit of a longer video, more than the other videos, which are the NFL Weekend Recap, which is roughly about 20 minutes, depending on all of the news that breaks. And then you have the NFL News in under 10 minutes, which is a max of around 10 minutes or less video, based on how much news I cover between each episode. So this is going to be one of the most longer episodes, one of the most longer series. But if you guys did enjoy it, come back for episode 2 on Thursday, where I'll be talking everything AFC East for their offensive and defensive weapons.